classic coin-operated version, but the horrible, perhaps worst ever port or coin-op conversion version of Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. Why is this one the worst video game ever? Well, just take a look at it. The board is nothing like the actual coin-op version. The sounds are horrible. Pac-Man doesn't even have the same sort of pie-shaped mouth opening. He's just this mindless chomping. And, I mean, just... Pac-Man is one of those great all-time classic games. And, sadly, this is a far cry from that. Alright, well, before we get too into the game here, I just want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors. Of course, we've got Lawrence Tech over in Southfield, Michigan. That is the presenting sponsor. They, as I mentioned, if you caught the episode yesterday that I did, where I played, oh shoot, what did I play? Space Invaders. Lawrence Tech really got state champs started in the whole eSports arena. They wanted to, you know, build up their eSports program. They have a great game arts and design program. They've got a very robust, active club team or rec team. And they are going to be launching a varsity esports team as well. So yes, so big shout out to Lawrence Tech. It's very weird trying to talk in coherent sentences while playing games before. This is only my second time doing it, so as you can see, I'm not doing that well. But I'm going to try to keep plowing through it. All right, so besides our friends over at Lawrence Tech, we got to thank Army Michigan. They are doing some really impressive things in the esports world. I mentioned yesterday they've got a great U.S. Army team and Twitch channel, so you should go check that out. But they've also been very supportive. They came on board last fall when we did our Rocket League tournament. So another big shout out to the folks over at Army Michigan. And lastly, good old Hungry Howie's Pizza. I call them Hungry Howie's just because they do so much more than pizza, but flavored crust is their thing, as the slogan goes. But they've been with state champs and esports for a long time now. They're big supporters, so lots of love for Hungry Howie's. Get out there, support them, do some carry out during this time. And all right, now let's get into the history of Pac-Man. Did you know that Pac-Man is considered by the Guinness Guinness World Record as being the most popular coin-operated arcade or video game of all time? It's got a bunch of other Guinness World Records, but I don't remember all of them. I think there's like 8 different records that the game holds. I mean, the game was huge. For anybody that wasn't around at the time, I kind of was right in that target audience. I spent a lot of time at the arcade, a lot of quarters playing Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man. They even had some, like, I think it was a Pac-Man family game with little baby Pac-Man. And so, yeah, I mean, Pac-Man was a huge phenomenon. I remember there was songs about Pac-Man, Pac-Man Fever. There was a cereal. There was a Saturday morning cartoon. I don't remember it being very good, but I mean, what other video games really have inspired that sort of public mass pop culture frenzy, this was really the first one. Nowadays we've got movie adaptations, we've got all kinds of stuff based off of video games. I mean, heck, they just had the Sonic movie that was out. But Pac-Man, he was the OG video game superstar. So it made a lot of sense for Atari to get the license to create an Atari version for their console. The problem is it kind of really backfired, and some people say that it almost ruined the video game industry, or at least Atari anyway. I believe there were about 10 million Atari units out on the market when they released Pac-Man, and they were so confident because of the arcade version's popularity that Atari went and made 12 million cartridges of this Pac-Man game. And that was actually 2 million more people than actually owned Atari systems. And apparently, people were not really happy with the game. Now, I myself was not happy with the game either, but you know, I was a kid. I was, you know, maybe 7, 8 years old. I didn't know any better. To me, it was better than having to go to the arcade and spending all my quarters and waiting in line. I could play Pac-Man anytime I wanted to for free. So as much as I disliked and was disappointed with the game, I did play it non-stop. I mean, this was one of my go-to games. But anyway, there's a lot of people, unlike myself, who hated the game so much that they returned it to stores wanting their money back. I believe there was something like 3 million copies that were returned. They sold 7 million copies, which was 5 million less than, or no, they sold 10 million copies, which is 2 million less than what they were had anticipated. But 3 million cartridges were returned, so they literally had to dump 5 million Atari cartridges in the desert. Now, for many years, that was kind of urban legend, along with the E.T. game. And there was a great documentary made where they actually went and dug up the supposed dumping site, and they did find many Atari cartridges. So the urban legend was proved to be real. So between Pac-Man and E.T., it pretty much ruined Atari. So you have this game and Mr. Spielberg to thank for at least that first wave of home consoles kind of falling by the wayside. Now, the development of the game was kind of interesting. I did a little Wikipedia research, and apparently there was one designer on the game, and he spent 6 months to port it over. Oddly, I was kind of shocked to read that he got no help from the was it Namco that created the Pac-Man game, and so he literally just had to play the coin-op version and just do all the research himself, try to get the game mechanics. As you could see, the layout's totally different. Now, a lot of that has to do with the limitations of the Atari cartridges at the time. But, I mean, the poor guy worked 80 hours a week for 6 months to get this thing ready, and then to have people essentially claim that it's the worst port of all time or worst game conversion of all time, I would imagine would be pretty disheartening. Now, I did hear he made, was it 1 cent per copy sold. So I guess I wouldn't be too upset since it did, at least initially, sell 10 million copies. I mentioned yesterday how horrible the sound effects and the music are for the Atari 2600, but as I also mentioned yesterday, these sounds are all burned into my brain, and it's an incredible nostalgia trip for me to hear them all again. I have not played this Atari version probably since I had that original console. I have played the arcade game many times over the years, and that's still, to this day, probably one of my favorite games of all times, at least coin-op games of all time. If you have I threw this out there yesterday, but if anyone has a game request, Pac-Man and Dig Dug were actually requested. I think I'm going to also play Qbert. I actually, at the beginning of March, I was able to meet the co-creator of Qbert. He was the character designer, kind of came up with the board. Really cool guy. It was really one of the last public outings, mass public outings. It was at the Great Lakes Comic-Con in Warren, and of course they had a Qbert game there for people to play, and the guy was selling his book, and I was able to do a quick little interview. So once I do the Qbert game, I'll make sure to post that interview and include the link on the page. Now I can't remember one of the great things with the coin-op Pac-Man is all of the different game level designs. And I can't remember if this one has the capacity to change boards. I mean, I might have already just seen it while we were talking and not been paying attention. So let me see if I can clear this board. Come on. Ow. Ooh, I thought it was dead for sure there. Okay, let me try to lure them in. Come on. Oh, shoot. Oh, there we go. And there, nice, got them all. And you know what? I'll just... Okay, nope, looks like it's the same level over and over again. I think the speeds increase, so there was some degree of difficulty as you advance through the levels. One of the things that I really miss from the coin-op game is the fruit that you got for the bonus. Here it's just the same pill over and over again. And I guess that was the other thing that was pretty distracting besides the board layout, was that there were dots in the original coin-op game. And these are clearly dashes. I mean, come on, people. If you're going to do a game, try a little bit harder. I can't imagine that dots would be all that more difficult. Unless, because there would have to be a lot more dots than these longer dashes, that maybe that's why it was too much. I don't know. I will say that playing with a pad, which I'm using a PS4 controller to play this, playing with a pad is a lot harder on the fingers than a joystick. When I played this game originally, it was with a joystick, the classic stick with the red button, black stick, red button. Ooh, got him. Okay. And this little pad here is harsh on the thumb. Then, of course, one of the other great things that is lacking from this game are the little cutscenes. I think that might have been like the original cutscenes of a video game, where Pac-Man would be chasing the ghosts, and one of the ghosts would come across a nail and get their sheet or their color or whatever it is would get ripped off. This game clearly does not have any cutscenes, but not unusual for an Atari game. I am just dying left and right here. This is pathetic. Alright, come on. Come on. There we go. A little bit of random trivia. Did you know the original title of the game Pac-Man was, I believe it was Pac-Man? But because the P could be so easily changed to some profanity, they, you changed the P to an F, just to spell it out for you. That they decided, at least for the U.S. version, they had to change the name, which is probably a smart thing, because a lot of the kids that I knew who hung around the arcade back in those days would have had a field day with that one. Alright, I'm just going to play a few more rounds here. But before I go, I just want to thank everybody for watching. And like I said, make sure to comment if there's any Atari 2600 games you'd like me to play and comment on. I try to do a little research while I'm playing here, just so I can fill you in on the history, because some of these games are pretty wild as far as what went on. Pac-Man obviously being one of the bigger ones, just because of the infamy or the notoriety of how bad the game was. I think I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try to do Dig Dug next. So if you want to tune in tomorrow, which would be Friday night, I'll be playing Dig Dug. Ooh, I gotta get my hands on a joystick though. And you know what would also be cool is Atari came with a paddle controller as well. So it was just a little round knob that you turned, and that was really good for, they had like a driving game, the Pong games were really good with the paddle. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Pathetic. Alright, let me just finish this board here real quick. I'll concentrate instead of talking so much. Okay, there we go. Come on, Ghosts. Come on. Come to Pac-Man. Ooh, and I'm going to get the bonus. Yeah. Alright. Now we're talking. And of course, before I go, I just have to give a plug. If you watch our State Champs eSports Twitch channel, we've also got some contemporary eSports games. So make sure you check out our Rocket League live streams, and we've got League of Legends going on. And then I'm going to try to get some of the other State Champs folks to come on and play their favorite games. I think we've got a Mario Kart person that wants to play. I know someone mentioned Animal Crossing. But for me, I'm going to be doing just the Atari retro games. And then once I work my way through, I guess depending on how long this quarantine goes, once I work my way through all these old Atari games, I am going to maybe jump over to some Coin-Op or Intellivision, or was it ColecoVision? I forget. All these systems. I never owned one. I just had the Atari, and then the Commodore 64, and then I had a... Why did I do that? I had a Super Nintendo. I don't think I ever had the original Nintendo. I did have a Super Nintendo. I think I had a Sega Genesis. I kind of trailed off there for a while. I do remember I had a Nintendo 64. That was pretty mind-blowing. And then I think from there I did the PS1 and PS2, PS3. Was it up to 4 now? And of course all the Xboxes. I was never really big on the handheld gaming, like the Game Boy and all those different ones. So I probably won't wind up doing any of those, but I guess along the lines of if you have any Atari 2600 game requests, if you have any system requests, if you'd like to see me do something else after I'm done with Atari, besides the coin op, just drop it in the comments and I will take that into consideration. I have to admit I'd probably be leaning towards the game systems that I played, just for nostalgia factor. This is a lot of fun. And I guess the one thing that does keep me coming back to these old games is kind of the saying, easy to play, difficult to master. And I think a lot of the problems that I have with today's games is that they are very difficult often to play and pick up. There's a steep learning curve, whereas with a lot of these classic games, you can literally just jump right in and instantly start playing. But to really be good at the games and to make it to the kill screen, as they say, I mean, you've got to put in a lot of time, a lot of skill goes into beating these games. So I guess I'm just from a different era where we have a different philosophy in gaming styles. Okay, I think this will be, I was gonna say this will be my last level here. I'm just gonna try to clear it. Oh, come on, Pac-Man. I think I got some Pac-Man fever going on here. Pac-Man fever. Now, supposedly there's a Weird Al Pac-Man song, which I don't think I've ever heard, so I gotta get my hands on that one. But as I hopefully try to finish up this board, I'd like to just once again thank our sponsors, Lawrence Tech, Army, Michigan, and of course, Hungry Howie's. And let's see if I can push it, get greedy, get all these ghosts. Okay, well, I guess that's as good a time as any to wrap things up. So thanks, folks. I appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time.